Right, so Labour have saved British steel, they are claiming. This is what they are standing up and cheering about today, having swiftly flown into action by recalling Parliament on a Saturday to apparently do so. And for the amount of MPs posting on social media about having worked on a Saturday, as if this was something transformative, as if they've managed to secure world peace by putting in a bit of overtime, has been an absolutely pathetic display. The simple fact of the matter is, they didn't save British steel at all. For all of the cheerleading they are putting on, they have now legislated not to renationalise British steel, as was being widely mooted as a possibility in the media. Instead, they've done something incredibly stupid. What they've done is legislate to criminalise British Steel's Chinese owners, Jingye, if they shut down, with the government now saying they'll pay Jingye's running costs to help keep them going. It's nice of them, isn't it? Who's paying for that then, I wonder? Oh yes, it's us, isn't it? Jingye losing something in the region of £700,000 a day on that plant right now. And with Labour's manifesto only pledging £2.5 billion towards saving the steel industry, that's not going to last 5 minutes as these costs rapidly eat it all away. All of this has come amid a backdrop of Starmer having let the even larger steelworks in Port Talbot close, and ignoring the plight of the Grangemouth oil refinery in Scotland, which is experiencing the exact same situation there as Scunthorpe has at the hands of its Chinese owners. Grangemouth being Scotland's last major oil refinery, but that's Scotland, and Port Talbot was Wales, and Scunthorpe, well, that's in England. And with Starmer issuing yet another tin-eared idiotic statement off the back of this mess he's made again, all he's done is prove he won't put this country and its needs and its infrastructure first at all. Because one of his wealthy donors or backers isn't making money out of it, then it isn't working for him, sellout that he and his party are. Right, so in the last 24 hours, Keir Starmer's Labour government have rushed through emergency legislation allegedly to save British steel. Ministers have been patting themselves on the back. We worked on a Saturday. You should cheer us all, they thought smugly, and much of the media, though not all, hailed it as a victory for British industry. But beneath all the self-congratulation lies a damning truth. Labour had the power to fully renationalise the Scunthorpe Steelworks, a move that would have secured its future in the national interest. Steel, a major component not just in infrastructure, but in our defence, which Starmer always seems to be all about, doesn't he? He's always throwing money at that. He's always got billions for war. But he's either missed the trick here, or thinks the stunt he's pulled is good enough. Because instead he chose to prop up the Chinese owners Jingye under threat of criminalisation if the furnaces don't stay on. This was not some 3D chess move of industrial strategy, but a half measure, a half-wit measure even, a political sleight of hand that exposed Labour's timidity and exposed it as no longer a Labour party at all. Worse still, it revealed that renationalisation was always possible, just as easy as the coercive legislative measures Starmer has opted for. Yet Labour refused to take that step. In doing so, they've left the door wide open for the likes of Nigel Farage to claim the mantle of economic patriotism, still calling for full renationalisation as he is, even though 2 years ago on Twitter he was asking why bother to save this plant in Scunthorpe at all. Getting all the media attention as he is, though, even though he's only jumped on what was actually the Green Party's bandwagon, who have been calling for this along with the renationalisation of energy, rail and more for years, and who, unlike Farage, would actually do it. While Labour has failed to act decisively on steel, they have still done something, which is more than they did for the steelworks in Port Talbot and the oil refinery right now in Grangemouth, and that hasn't been missed either. So what has Labour done then exactly, Damo? Well, the government's emergency legislation forces Jingye to keep the Scunthorpe plant open, backed by public money subsidies. We're going to pay for it, under pain of criminal penalties if they refuse. The Chinese owners must keep the plant open. We foot the bill for the running costs, Jingye apparently losing almost £750,000 a day on it. This is not nationalisation, but a hollow knockoff made to resemble nationalisation, a policy that maintains private ownership while socialising all the risk. The move has been framed as necessary to protect jobs and the supply chains, which it will do for now at least, yet it does nothing to address the fundamental instability that comes with private ownership, and private ownership in a critical industry that we cannot get by without. We need our own steel manufactured here in the UK. Relying on imports leaves everything from critical infrastructure to defence completely at the whims of the markets. We have to have UK and British steel, but it has to be literally British steel and not China making what's called British steel. It's hellishly dangerous and irresponsible to not renationalise this industry. It's also completely incompetent. If the government can legislate to force Jingye to keep the plant open, it could just as easily have legislated to take it all back into public hands. It's making a loss at the moment. The cost is zero to have done so. The legal mechanism is identical. The political will was simply absent. Instead, Labour has chosen to funnel public money into a loss-making enterprise which it could take control of and run as a non-profit itself, in the national interest as that absolutely would be, while leaving control in the hands of a foreign corporation, one now vilified in the British press as a villain for considering the rational capitalist decision to cut its losses. The attacks on Labour have come for both the right reasons and the wrong ones. GB News, GBB, ever the bastion of economic illiteracy, has framed the debate around cost, having sneered at Rachel Reeves, foolish enough to go on their show again, with the question, where's the money coming from then? That old chestnut. When the reality is that a currency issuing government like ours is not constrained by the revenue it takes via taxation. It can print as much money as it ever needs, otherwise there would never always be money for war, would there? Of course, Reeves couldn't answer that because she's as party to economic illiteracy as anyone, so she could hardly tell the truth if she even knew it herself, which is debatable given how she runs the economy. But if the political will existed, the plant could have been renationalised at no net cost to the public at all, with the asset returning to state hands. Instead, Labour has opted for a policy that keeps British steel in Chinese ownership while making the British public pay for its survival. And they pat themselves on the back for this as if it's a job well done. The most galling aspect of all of this, though, is that it has proven all the arguments for renationalisation of once upon a time state assets. Starmer's actions prove renationalisation was always feasible and was always going to be cost effective. If the state can just pass laws to compel a private company to operate against its own financial interests, then it can certainly pass laws to take that company back into public ownership. The precedent for this already actually exists, as it happens, and as ridiculous as it sounds, it demonstrates that Starmer's Labour are now to the right of the Tories over renationalisation. In 2021, the Conservative government renationalised Sheffield Forgemasters, placing it under the control of the Ministry of Defence, who have retained ownership of that company ever since. Far from collapsing, the firm has thrived, launching a brand new apprenticeship scheme this year for 21 new apprentices, all in its new state-of-the-art facility, so they've been expanding as well. And little wonder as they've secured new contracts, including one to produce nuclear reactor parts from 2026 all the way through to 2050, creating some 3,000 jobs along the way. It is utterly damning. The Tories, of all people, the party of privatisation, the ones who sold off all our state assets, had no qualms about taking a strategic industry back under state control when it was needed, and it hurts me deeply to give them any props ever, let alone over something like this. But they did renationalise something, and it has worked, and not enough is made of it, that the arguments made by those of us who have always championed renationalisation and the reversal of Thatcherite destruction of infrastructure and manufacturing is critical to economic prosperity and security. Starmer's Labour, meanwhile, has lurched to their right on this issue, refusing to do the same for British Steel whilst acting like they have. This is not pragmatism, it is incompetence and it is cowardice. A refusal to break from neoliberalism even when the alternative is staring them in the face. Everything Labour is supposed to stand for at that, but no longer does. The timing of Labour's aggressive stance towards Jingye is also rather suspicious. As Donald Trump has escalated his trade war with China, as we've all seen, Starmer's government has chosen this moment to strong-arm a Chinese-owned company. So is this really all about saving British jobs, or is there some element of aligning with Washington's anti-China rhetoric and kissing Trump's Cheeto-dusted posterior? It's a valid question, especially given the apparent news today that Liberal Democrat MP Vera Hobhouse had been barred from entering Hong Kong to visit family, a move that could easily be seen as retaliatory, and Lib Dem leader Ed Davey has kicked off about this to David Lammy today, so maybe there's more to be seen on that story. And of course it comes hot on the tails of two Labour MPs being barred from entering Israel as well. If the UK is determined to provoke China, it might as well have gone all the way and renationalised though. Instead, Labour has settled for a policy that appears to have antagonised China whilst leaving British steel in Chinese hands. That's bound to turn out all right, isn't it? Labour's selective interventionism also reeks of political favouritism, and this is causing real ructions as well. 6 months ago, the party stood by as Tata Steel shuttered Port Talbot's blast furnaces, sacrificing thousands of Welsh jobs as it moves to electric arc furnaces, which won't come online until 2028. The consequences for the town built around the steelworks, everything revolving around that industry, has been devastating. The town that is now grappling with economic devastation. And Plaid Cymru has accused Labour of deliberate neglect over this, contrasting its inaction in Wales with its haste to save Scunthorpe. England seemingly coming first, Wales coming second. And that same double standard applies to Grangemouth, Scotland's critical oil refinery. The SNP have rightly pointed out that the plant, which employs more people than Scunthorpe Steelworks do, and forms a larger share of Scotland's economy than Scunthorpe Steelworks do, for England, faces imminent closure. Yet Labour has dismissed calls for intervention here, claiming it is not the same situation, and have bunged £200 million at the plant in a bid to, frankly, offset criticism. No real detail as to what that cash is going to do, rather than being directed to any specific use. And it would be remiss of me to not mention at this point that Starmer has just found another £450 million to send to Ukraine again, because he's basically set up a standing order at this point, it seems, to just keep funneling cash to Zelensky on a monthly basis. But coming back to the case of Scunthorpe versus Grangemouth, the hypocrisy is glaring. If steel is a national strategic asset, so is energy infrastructure. And although I am a Green member, and going green and green energy is absolutely what I'm all about, going green is not 100% possible at this precise point in time. It's going to take us a little while to get there. And Starmer's green plans as they stand anyway, GB Energy having already been exposed as a con as well, just another private equity vehicle. And so all in all, Labour's refusal to act suggests that jobs in England, in Scunthorpe, matter more than those in Wales or Scotland, despite being critical infrastructure too. And not in any way alleviating or correcting those criticisms, of course, Keir Starmer has made an ill-advised statement on all of these matters. More gloating, that has naturally gone down like a lead balloon. He said, "Today, my government," not sure when he became head of state, but there we go, "has stepped in to save British steel. We are acting to protect the jobs of thousands of workers, and all options are on the table to secure the future of the industry, except renationalisation, apparently. Delivering security and renewal for working people is at the heart of my plan for change." Not much change, though. This government is turning the page on a decade of decline, where our manufacturing heartlands were hollowed out by the previous government. In recent weeks alone, we have announced the expansion of Heathrow Airport and the building of the biggest theme park in Europe in Bedford. We are reforming our planning rules to build 1.5 million homes and the infrastructure the nation desperately needs. New roads, railways, schools, hospitals, grids and reservoirs. British Steel will be the backbone as we get Britain building once more. This is a government of industry. That's why we secured a better deal for the workers of Port Talbot. It's why we fought to secure the future of Harland and Wolff. It's why we pledged £200 million to Grangemouth. Our industry is the pride of our history, and I want it to be our future too. A secure future, a Britain rebuilt with British steel in the national interest. You literally saved British Steel for a Chinese company. You would have saved those jobs for the long term into the future if you'd chosen to renationalise instead. You've caused, by the looks of things, a diplomatic balls up with China over it. You've abandoned workers in Scotland and Wales by choice when you could and should be renationalising there too, and there is still time to correct course here, but you won't. You point out all of the infrastructure we rely on steel for, yet we don't have it under state control in the name of national security and very much in the national interest. You cheer about a theme park which shows how desperate you are for some kind of economic win that has come about more by luck than judgment. You cheer about airport expansions which are unwelcome and unwanted, and all of these are bonuses economically for the South East at the expense of all the rest of the country. You've won nothing for workers at Port Talbot because it's effectively shut. You've bunged money to Grangemouth when their future remains bleak in the hope they'll shut up and go away. As for Harland and Wolff, the shipbuilders, they who built the Titanic, well, having come from that same background myself in ship repair, you need decent quality steel, and you won't nationalise it in the national interest to get it, despite having the gall to say we're doing what we've done all in the national interest. You are such a goddamn liar, and somehow, despite thinking I cannot despise this man any more than I already do, he manages to find it in me. Labour's handling of British Steel is just another in an ever-growing list of broader failures in government. It had the chance to renationalise a vital industry, securing jobs and supply chains for the long term. It could and should have gone further with both Port Talbot and Grangemouth, just as the Tories did with Sheffield Forge Masters. The Tories, for heaven's sake. But instead, Starmer chose a stopgap measure that leaves steel in private hands, dependent on state subsidies, so we pay for it, and vulnerable to future crises. By refusing to take that necessary and essential step, Starmer has ceded the argument to Farage most prominently, the Greens who have stood on this platform for a lot longer and would actually do it, because if you trust Farage, you're as bad as those who still trust Starmer, frankly, who rightly argue that essential industries should be under public control. Decades of ever more expensive, worsening public services have proven privatisation has been a 100% failure. But for as long as politicians are in the pockets of the same people in control of those industries, it won't change either. Worse, Starmer has abandoned workers in Wales and Scotland, whilst obviously favouring those in England, stoking further division across the country. If steel is truly a national asset, it should be owned by the nation. If it is in the national interest, it should be owned by the nation. If it is a matter of national security, it should be owned by the nation. Labour's refusal to do so is not just a missed opportunity, it's a betrayal. And we must never forget it. Little wonder, therefore, that Labour have been annihilated in 2 by-elections over just the last few days. Little wonder they're being battered by resignations by Labour officials, even at the point of the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party itself. Starmer is destroying the Labour Party. Maybe it needs to be destroyed, so more of the country get behind a more progressive movement instead. Check out the latest electoral and representative disasters befalling Starmer's Labour, all his own doing, ahead of local elections in just a few weeks. In this video recommendation here is your suggested next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't already done so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new daily content, as well as supporting the channel at the same time, which is very much appreciated, holding power to account for ordinary working class people, and I'll hope to catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.